just thought I'd throw that on there since we were talking about the crazy world
George.
of Arthur Brown. Welcome back to the Friday Matinee, and wake up if you were napping.
That'll
Actually,
take care of it.
I also have, I don't know if you know this, I have part of my morning, I have a morning show stinger with that.
Yes.
But we call it the crazy world of Arthur Brown because we were talking about the crazy world of Jack Enyart, who is our in-studio guest, who has done so much. I mean, we didn't really get into Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, the animated series, was it?
Yes. I thought it was going to be the elegant world of Jack Enyart. Yeah, I dressed up for this and everything since we're on radio.
You are a very sharp-dressed man, I'm not going to lie. Very nice, very good.
By the way, I really want to send a shout-out about Newhall. I've never been here. I love the Cowboy Walk of Fame.
Oh, my gosh. And, we're going to get, do you know Nudies, the tailor? They're opening their store.
You're kidding.
We have the Out West where they put on some incredible shows.
Nudies would be back?
Yes. Thursday nights in Newhall are amazing. It's car shows. It's food fair. It's art slams. It's an amazing community. And Thursday nights, it's just hopping. When I leave here, I'm so excited to see what Newhall is at night.
I used to get my weekend wardrobe at Nudies. I was crushed when they finally closed down.
The family's opening up here in Newhall, and they're going to be part of the Western Memorabilia Museum. Lemley's going in down near the library. It's a jumping joint.
And compared to what
rocks.
it was about 15, 20 years ago, they've really
Old Town
revitalized
Newhall totally rocks.
And you got a skyscraper 4 stories high, about as high as a building ought to go.
That's right. That's right. This used to be across the street here. Was now it's been rebuilt because it's burned down several times. But this is the location of the original first hotel that they built. In Newhall, and it was like the skyscraper at the time. So there you have
And
it.
this was the little whistle stop.
Yeah, Gene Autry used to say, "Where the sidewalk ends, the West begins."
That's true.
And
that's Newhall.
Us. That's
that
us.
Is Newhall.
That is us.
Okay.
But so yes, we are talking to Jack Enyart, who you can learn more about him. Go to jackenyart.com, ENYART.
Thank you.
He's again developer, writer of animation and comic books for 30 years. He's done voiceover, story editing, art direction. He's a consultant to major and independent studios. He also teaches script writing and development, and that's when we're going to bring you in, Minji, and talk a little bit about that. And the fact that you've got a new project that sounds very exciting.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, this will kind of clarify, I think, some of the things we're doing. I have an associate. His name is John Lustig, and he does something called Last Kiss Comics, and I highly recommend this. You just subscribe to it online. Yeah, Andrew's talking about this. John bought the rights to old 1950s and 60s romance comics, and he redoes the dialogue. And it's hysterical. So there's like a panel a day of this. And I just love this, and I recommend it to my friends. And I was at Warner Brothers one day for a meeting, the Warner Brothers cartoon department, which is now on the old Warner's Ranch.
Oh.
Out in Burbank. And it was getting to be dusk, and I found myself walking on one of the old 1950s style streets, like on Leave It to Beaver,
Right.
And the sunlight was going down, and I looked in and I realized there's nothing behind the houses.
Spooky, right?
Spooky, right. And I suddenly got this idea to do a parody of an old-style Leave It to Beaver type show.
Okay.
Because, here, Mad Men kind of inspired me about this, too. Because watching the show, it turned out, through other sources, I found out what was really going on with my parents and their generation and all this stuff. It's like you're looking over the banister wondering, And
you get this eyeful that you go, what?
Yeah,
I had no
so
idea.
I wanted to do what was really going on behind the Leave It to Beaver kind of thing. So we created Bucky, who's this, little shining-faced boy. He has no idea, what the adults and all these terrible people are up to behind the scenes of the, the lurid 50s. So John Lustig's work was perfect for this. We want it to look like an old-fashioned romance comic. So I wrote up, the episodes and the full presentation and everything like that. Okay. So John has been promoting it online, with occasional Bucky gags. And we're using the leverage of the fact that John has a lot of merchandising connected with Last Kiss. You can get coffee cups and, and refrigerator magnets and things like that. And so we wanted to take this to the animation studios and say, look, John has a presence online already, which we're talking about. How do you sell a project or whatever? The studios are now expecting you to bring in a fan base ahead of time. They're getting really lazy.
They get really lazy. Recording artists, they want you to have a database of like 50,000 people people,
It's
and then they'll give you
parallel.
a deal.
Yes, it's exactly parallel to that. So you wind up being in business for yourself, and like Andrew, you go down to Best Buy and you buy enough to do your own project. So that's where we are with that. But we had a big long distance strategy meeting on Skype, and John and I were deciding how do we want to pitch this, and I said I want to try and pitch it old style to a major animation studio. If I were 25 years old, it might be different. I might want to produce things to go online and things like that.
Right.
But I want to do it, give me a nice salary, bring me in. We'll hire nice, intelligent, young people to do the episodes. Okay. I'm looking at here. I don't want to dot every T and I here, and I'll read my checks. But there were so many options that I had to say, John, I don't want to try every possible single option here. I want to zero in, and do it a certain kind of old school way. Does that clarify things, sort of?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm super curious now. We're radio and we're all about the audio, but I'm super curious now about the visuals. I want to see these characters, and I do want to hear your.
Well, you saw my newsletter promoting this, and I had to explain what radio is now based on.
Right.
What you gave to me, and there's this long list of different ways
to listen to radio
listen to this.
Yeah. We George and I have a fan in, where was he? Scandinavia? Sweden. He was in Sweden, so listens to us. So it's like, what? You can listen anywhere.
Our legions of fan. Yes. But I want to talk now, if we can bring, shifting gears to now, you of course do everything else in among the elegant world of Jack Enyard's consultant.
Much better.
But you are the god of heckfire, yes. But,
exactly, yeah.
How you met up with our Andrew Menjivar here, a.k.a. Menji, and what interaction there was. Like, Menji, when did you first meet Jack?
I first met Jack when I was attending Columbia College, and I had seen in the catalog a new class called Developing Writing for Animation. It was called Writing for Animation, and I thought that was the most interesting thing in the world, because the first thing that got me into film was Toy Story. So it was an animation film that got me into film, and I figured, this should be a really interesting class to take.
So, and Columbia College Hollywood, that's the one that is in the Valley, right? Am I thinking of the one that, because I've been there before.
Yeah.
And I've done some.
With a name like
there.
Columbia College of Hollywood, of course it's in Tarzana.
Of course, it's in Tarzana. But, and there's a Columbia College of Tarzana in Hollywood, strangely enough.
I love that Toy Story was the one that brought you in, because when I first watched Toy Story, the texture of it was outrageous from anything I had ever seen in the world of animation. There were bits of linoleum and wood and things that were popping off the screen that gave it this dimension out.
It was the first big CGI film.
Oh my gosh, it was exciting. So I love that was your go-to moment.
To be clear, a well-respected school that has a broad array.
Huge.
It's terrific. It's been there for 60 years.
Right.
Or so.
Yeah.
It's an amazing campus too, and just people who are really focused and dedicated on different parts of filmmaking and everything else. So you went you took his class, but I had no idea that you actually had you have put together something, right? As far as
yes, we're talking about Shut Up, Charlotte.
Okay,
are we?
Can we talk about that now? Or is this
we
super
can.
secret?
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead, take up my time. Pitch it. Well, this is interesting because this is what we call the elevator pitch.
Right.
You know what an elevator pitch is?
Right.
Okay. Well,
you're
for
stuck
those
in
who
the
don't-
elevator for a moment with a producer, with someone who can do something with your project and your love and your life, and you have exactly from floor 1 to 5 to tell them what it is before they
this
walk
pretty
out of
well,
your
yeah.
life. Oh, I've done. Yeah, I've been there. I've been on the escalator with people going, "Here's what I do, and here's
The
what
escalator
Yeah,
pitch.
the escalator pitch. So you pitched Jack on your show when you went in? Is that or your idea?
No, I had told Jack about because he wanted to do a newsletter about where were the successes of his students that he had done before, and I had completely missed the deadline. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Jack. But
now you're a
hey,
professional. You missed a deadline.
That's right.
I looked at, but look at this amazing thing that I did. It was it's called Shut Up, Charlotte, and it's about this girl named Charlotte who lives in a small isolated town in Virginia, and everyone in the town tells her to shut up.
No, I think I know her. I might have been her for a minute when I was a kid. Talked too much. Jack, were you that kid in school? You talked too much? Were you creative, bouncing off the wall kid?
No, I was the elegant art kid, whatever that means.
He's the Simon.
You are Simon.
Yeah, without the scientific bent. But I was very popular around election time because people wanted posters. Yes, artists get very popular in school around election time. Suddenly the people who wouldn't talk to you normally are like, "Hi, Jack, gosh, could you do this for me?"
Menji, did you see some of yourself in, like, when you met Jack and you learned and got to know him a little bit? Do you see a little of yourself in him?
Well, the thing about
As
it
a
is that
mentor?
With or without the bow tie?
Without the bow tie.
yes, because out of all of my professors, Jack is the only one that I've actually kept in contact with.
Oh, okay, that's a compliment.
So, worth being in contact with. Yes.
Because it just, I don't know, maybe it's your attitude towards the things and the way that you go about explaining. And I didn't know in the script that, put SFX and then I suddenly all the cartoon scripts I'm doing, it fills up with all of these sound effects and onomatopoeias.
Yeah.
Now, Jack, you are you're a larger than life person. And I'm sure even with your Simon
6'3"
qualities, you're very passionate about what you do, and you come in with a lot of life and a lot of. Do you find when you are presenting to students, because you were talking about the 4-year-olds, the 10-year-olds, the teenagers, the college students, do you find yourself sometimes becoming one of your characters, because you are very...
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, if I'd have a hard day, I'd come home and my wife would say, "Oh my God, you're Daffy Duck." My feathers would be frazzled. Am
I allowed to open this and take this out of its...
Oh, sure,
okay.
yeah. That's a really old one. You'll see. You'll see how old the Daffy Duck comic is because there's a waterbed gag on the cover.
Yeah, I know that. And also,
70s,
it's 40 cents. So I was going to say late 70s.
And I think you can buy sea monkeys off the back. But,
sea monkeys. I love them. Instant family.
Super posters. Let's see. Kiss. You got an old Eric Clapton poster there. Stewart from Bay City Rollers. So this is how far back we're
Bay
going.
City Rollers.
Adam Rich before he had all those problems. And so,
but because you are,
I was a child when I wrote this.
Oh yes.
I wondered if there was a moment in school where you were that character too. If some of that.
Well, let me explain something about my image, since I'm sitting here wearing a pink sport coat. When I was growing up, I thought cartoonists were glamorous people. My father was a very elegant guy, like I said, was Don Draper kind of thing. But you have to realize, in the movies then, cartoonists were these elegant playboys.
Yeah.
For some reason, and these dashing actors would play them, and they'd have a drawing board in the corner of their penthouse in New York, and they have an assistant or something drawing for them, and they would go out, with the ladies and have martinis and all that, and I thought that was what it was like. Then I go into the actual animation industry, and it's a bunch of guys in T-shirts,
you could so totally be on screen. You're like Robert Downey Jr.'s big brother. You've got that whole kind of energy, and so. But do you find when it comes time to focus and bring everything down to where it's just you and the pencil, or you and the pen, and you and whatever you're working on, is it hard to kind of can corral that, as we were talking about earlier?
This is interesting because I find working in cartoons and teaching and all that different from my fine art work.
Okay.
If you go to my website, you can see the fine art work, and it's pretty serious, portraits, landscapes, things like that. That I have to really focus and concentrate on. I work in brush pens, which are like watercolors, and you can't make a mistake. It has to go right. It's like Zen,
Wow.
You go to the Japanese pavilion at Lacan.
So you're like the Pandora box of humans, because you're contained and you do what you need to do, and then that lid comes off and you're like.
Well, that I find is very different, very focused, and and all that, and very you have to be respectful of the subject and really understand it. But with the cartoon stuff, as you've had to experience, in my classes, it just comes, in this font of kind of things, especially if you're working with other people. One of the reasons I did get into animation was I liked collaborating. And I liked, I don't want to have to draw Mickey Mouse. That's too hard.
Right.
So I can do a sketch, and I can do some gags and turn them over to somebody else. Yeah. Comic books were ideal. Comic books, there were a few collaborators, but basically I would write it, turn it in. The editor would, approve it, hopefully. And then a few months later, like 3 months later, it would come back drawn, by an artist who really knew what they were doing. And by that time, I'd forgotten what I had written, and I was actually able to sit and enjoy it and say, hey, this is funny.
I did that?
Yeah. So that was a really positive experience, to have a positive reaction to your own work and to get detached from it. So, again, talking about this hyphenate thing, my website is interesting. My wife and my web designer, Steve Tyler, is not the rock musician, but Steve Tyler is a wonderful web designer, and he doesn't talk Klingon, and he explains things.
Breaks it down.
Makes it all happen, but. I'm finding that a website was which I've had from years now, but it's a real key thing to defining who you are. And we had big debates about how many portals and how many different identities and who was I and all that. And we finally got me down to a minimum of 3 characters on my site. So if you'll see, the consultant.
It became Alvin, Simon, and Theodore again?
It could be. But consultant covers, animation and helping people with their projects. Man About Tune. Which is my other, designation.
I like that.
That's the teaching and lecturing, and I guess this would come under it.
Yeah.
And then in Yartist, see how clever that is? Yes.
We have, we have.
Very good.
That's where my fine artwork is.
Okay.
And I couldn't find a way to compress them any further, so I like to hope that they balance each other out. But sometimes I wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and say, how am I going to balance all this out during the course of a day? But again, this is increasingly, particularly in the arts, people are having to decide this and having to keep keep their balls in the air.
No,
I didn't mean that the way
as a voiceover person.
We never do.
Most professional way. In the voiceover realm, tell me a little bit about what you've done in that
that
arena.
came about very interestingly. So I was working on Alvin and the Chipmunks, and a lot of animation, and this is partly, an explanation for my personality, is pitching, and I'd have to go into the Bagdasarians, and sell the particular show. There's a famous Daffy Duck cartoon called The Scarlet Pumpernickel, where Daffy is trying to sell to Jack Warner, and he says, you got to give me a dramatic part. I'm just sick of doing comedy all the time. And Warner can't get one. Well, this is me pitching,
Okay.
So I was desperately pitching this cartoon, and Ross Bagdasarian, who sounds exactly like Dave Seville on the show, and he says, Jack, would you like to do some voices for the show? And I'm saying, yeah, because Ross is doing them all himself, and it all sounds like Ross. He holds his nose and it still sounds like Ross. So what I would do is, this is a clever route.
Inside
I would
trick?
write a script. Yeah, I would write a script, and there would be 3 parts in it for a male. Because you know what day player is? They
Yes.
can hire, you can
Yes.
hire an actor to do voices, a maximum of 3 voices during the day. So I'd write the elevator operator, the delivery guy, and the deli guy, and all that. And I'd send in a little audition tape. So I did a lot of those on the Chipmunks, just all these side voices. And I still got checks for them.
Nice.
Yeah. So
that's good. Write yourself in. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a good way to make that happen.
However, I really wanted a more serious voice career because I have a pretty versatile voice. As a matter of fact, I have a voice range somewhat like Mel Blanc, so I can do most of the Looney Tunes characters pretty convincingly. But the problem is that the big actors discovered acting.
Voiceover, yes.
And so you can get Tom Hanks or
Right,
they'd be glad to do
Tim
it.
Allen or
They'd be
anybody
happy to do
There's
it.
nobody who doesn't do
Or they
it
could do it in
now.
their jammies.
When Robert and when Robert De Niro did a shark in a movie, I thought, okay, that jumps
Those
the shark.
days, definitely jumping the shark.
Yeah,
Oh, that's hysterical.
yeah.
I didn't know he did.
Yeah, but it really cut off a career path that used to be great. There were like 3 people who did everything.
Yes,
Exactly.
Tress McNeil
So I wanted to be
Pat
wanted to
Fraley.
be that one. Yeah.
Exactly. So unless it's commercials or something else, it's not always a steady gig. As a matter of fact, Robbie Rist, who we had as the guest last year, had said that. Now I can't think of the show he does. Doc McStuffins,
Yes.
which he's one of the voices on. It's his first steady gig in about 10 years, even though he works kind of regularly, but it's not something that brings in a regular paycheck.
Well,
And so
that's
this
why
was-
that's why when you sell an animated show, one of the droits du seigneur, that's French for right of I can do whatever I want, is you get to cast yourself as one or 2 of the voices.
Fabulous.
very nice.
So that I'm
Fabulous.
looking forward to. So
Well, that's outstanding. Our guest is Jack Enyart, consultant.
Yes.
Fine artist, writer, man about toon, and all-around nice guy. We're going to take another break and then just do some final wrap-ups on this. I like this. It's like I said, your stream of consciousness and your stream of thought could keep going without being interrupted by capitalism every 7 minutes, like our prior thing. So I'm really enjoying this.
New clock.
That's right. So this is the Friday Matinee on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome back to the Friday Matinee here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am T.
I'm George.
And we are here with Jack Inyart, a gentleman. It's truly just from soup to nuts when it comes to cartoons and animation and just the whole machine. You're the go-to guy. You could be your own studio, but based on everything you've already done and you are doing, including It's Always Bucky, your new project. And we were going to talk about Killer Tomatoes and Clueless.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yes.
Really brief. Now that was it's now a cult classic, but
Yes.
a really bad horror flick from the 80s. It was
gosh.
kind of a laugh. It was really like tongue in cheek. But
George Clooney was in it.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to
Was
look
he in
that
the
up.
first one?
I think in the second one.
Because I've only seen the second one.
But Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and then there was a very short-lived animation series.
It was actually 2 or 3, maybe 3 seasons. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Margaret Lesh,
That's
who's
a good life.
Yeah, it was a big executive at Fox, just saw this stupid movie and decided that she wanted to do this as a TV series. And so again, this was a project that was brought into a particular studio, Marvel, and see what you can do with this. And I and the story editor, Richard Mueller, and another fellow, Ted Peterson, we all got together and we actually convinced them that the way to do this show, we had 13 episodes to begin with, and we said the 3 of us can write all of these. So kind of leave us alone, in an office, which is the best way that things are done. And we realized that because the movie was so stupid, we could make it we could make it a parody of every mad scientist kind of thing, like the mad tomato professor.
Is that available somewhere?
Professor Gangrene.
Are we able to see that somewhere?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Professor Gangrene. He always had his underlighting with him, so no matter what
perfect.
the lighting was, so. And we just went insane with it. We also we got John Aston, who originally did the voice, to do, the
Gomez
voice.
Adams.
Delicious.
Among other things,
Adams.
yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah. But by the way, I have to digress because at one point he was up to play Gomez Adams on the Addams Family cartoon show, and they said, "Can we get an audition from you?"
Oh.
And he said, "Tune in Channel 5 every day,
Are you
Monday
kidding
through
me?
Friday. You wanted to audition." There
There's
it is.
my audition.
Yeah. But we also managed to convince them to do the you'll like this, to do the recording as a radio show. We got all the actors in.
Perfect.
Because usually they're done separately,
Yes.
and you can tell.
You can tell.
that they're
You can
not
hear
in
the
studio
disconnect.
together. You can
Yeah.
hear the disconnect between them. So that
Yeah.
made a big difference about the show.
Ensemble recording
we
is
have-
so
yeah.
much better.
We have about 2 or 3 minutes to talk about Clueless.
Yeah, Clueless. We have the Clueless comic book here, and this was done about 20 years ago. And particularly, my wife's in the fashion industry, and I got kind of bored with the fact that there wasn't enough stuff for girls,
Thank you.
And I'm bored with superhero type things. So I actually talked Marvel into getting the rights to Clueless for a comic book. And I want you to take a look. We wanted to not have it look like Barbie, which was the only thing
Right.
on the air at the time. So we got a very hip-looking art style and all that.
Oh,
It's really cool, isn't it? Yeah.
nice.
And my father asked me, he said, "Jack," he says, how can you write for teenage girls?
Oh, this is very
how
slick.
He says, "How do you know what teenage girls think?" And I said, "Daddy-o, they think what I tell them to think." but basically the thing is this, you remember the slang in the show?
Yeah.
If you figure out how the slang works, you can come up with it. So it's like, I wrote this language here. But what I wanted to mention to Andrew was, and I asked him about his show, is how he felt or whether he got any resistance to doing a show with female leads.
Yeah, and both of my characters are Charlotte and Bethany, 2 female leads, and
I mean, how dare you?
I didn't even think that would be a problem, just because at that point I had developed it to the point where they were just the characters to me. They weren't, based on a gender or anything, and I guess it was too balanced. I was told it was too balanced, that it was
Too
good,
balanced, yeah.
good for boys and good for girls, but we wanted to lean on one side or the
So
other.
that we can market. It's
And
all about
yeah.
marketing.
And there was a big frustrating argument I had, and
Yeah, because they still define things as a boy show or a girl's show, right?
Yeah.
Kind of that's it. Yeah, yeah.
And even though there's a lot, though, and these kids today, the millennial stuff, they're like the gaming and things like that, where it's everyone's all on the same page. I know as many girl gamers as boy gamers. So I think that we're starting to hopefully see that change enough to where, at least from a marketing standpoint, it makes sense, because it's always about the dollars. Like, even people ask about our format and all this stuff. It's like, we do this because it's how we market to our audience. And it's the same thing. Even if it's arts, there's still got money to be made. So that's the deal. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Very fun.
Jack,
I got one gag left, but I bet you don't have time.
We have a minute.
Is it a minute gag? Okay, go.
No, well, it's an observation. Here was my revenge for getting to do Clueless. My fellow animation writers would come to me and say, Jack, what are you doing this girly thing? I said, listen, you write Batman or whatever. Who are your fans? Who comes up to you? He said, well, geeky teenage boys, overweight with acne and all that. I said, my fans are cute teenage girls.
So there you have it.
Girls
Mr.
love Batman
Jack,
too. I
Clueless.
like Batman.
If you go through your old Daffy Duck comic books, or your Disney comics, or Aladdin, or you have a Clueless comic book, it was most likely written by our guest, Jack Enyart. JackEnyart.com, Jack ENYART.com to see his stuff and find out more about him. If you want to get in contact with him and find out where he's going to be
take his classes,
talking, teaching, doing anything next, it's awesome. This has been absolutely fantastic.
This was
Jack.
pleasurable.
I really, really appreciate that. Our new format has worked out really well. I love it. This has been the Friday Matinee on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.